Hello YouTube, this is mdrag Wolf. I'm going over my deck profile for the Hero Strike Back. To start with, the most important hero, of course, is the new hero, Shadow Mist. His effect is he's able to add one change spell when he's special summoned, or when he's sent to the graveyard, you can add one elemental hero to your hand. Basically, he's a searcher, and he's the most useful hero in the deck. Basically, he's the most important hero in the deck. Next, you've got Bubbleman. When he's the only monster in your hand, you can draw two. Believe me, I've been using this on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, and basically, he absolutely destroys opponents, especially against the giant hand deck. Because they tend to wipe out the field, and then when you special summon Bubbleman from hand, you get the two draw, and then you're able to come up with some sort of comeback. The last hero I use is 3 copies of Alias. Sometimes I drop this to 2, but I feel 3 is good. He's got 1900 attack points, he's got the light attribute, and he's good for summoning Koga from the extra deck. We'll look at the other monsters that I use now as well. I use 2 copies of Summoner Monk because this is a spell heavy deck, and I use 2 copies of Goblinberg because he can special summon 1 level 4 or lower monster from your hand. So he's good for summoning the Shadow Mist from the hand and then getting the effect, then activating the quick play spell Mass Change, which allows you to summon out someone from the main deck such as Anki or Dark Law. 2 other monsters I like to use to stall is Rainbow Karibo, which can stop an attack by equipping itself to another player's monster, or from the graveyard it can stop a direct attack by banishing itself from the graveyard. And then I've also got Marshmallow, just because it's pure annoying, especially when someone attacks into it and then can't do anything afterwards. The last monster I use in this deck is Black Luster Soldier Envoy at the beginning, basically because there's loads of light and dark monsters and he's very easy, and I bring him out quite a lot of the time. Spells. I use 1 copy of Dark Hole to wipe the field. I use 3 copies of Miracle Fusion to summon monsters from my extra deck. I use 1 copy of Mask Charge to get back my change spells and 1 hero monster. So basically I can come up with some sort of comeback. I use 4 change spells. I use 3 copies of Mass Change and 1 copy of Form Change. I additionally use 1 copy of Soul Charge because it also helps bring out the elemental hero Shadow Mist. Soul Charge is also very good for bringing out XYZ monsters, which are also used in this deck. Next up, I use 2 copies of A Hero Lives. You pay half your life points if you control no monsters, and you get special summon 1 level 4 element or lower elemental hero monster from your deck. So you can just use this to bring out the Shadow Mist again and get the effect off to get the change spell. I use 1 day apiece because there are a lot of spells in this deck which require life point cost. This helps lower the cost, negate the cost for that turn. I only use 1 copy of Emergency Call because I feel I draw into the heroes quite a lot. Also, having Dark Mist as a searcher, not Dark Mist, sorry, Shadow Mist, sorry, pretty much makes only 1 E needed. And then I use 3 reinforcements of the army because you can get any of Goblinberg, Bubbleman, Alias, or Shadow Mist. It just depends on what you need at the time. As for traps, I use 1 Dark Bribe because it goes well with Dark Law in the extra deck, which we'll look at in a bit. I use one Bottomless Hole. I would be at 2 because it's really good against pendulum decks. I use 2 copies of Mirror Force. This spell allows you to destroy your monsters with attack, and these are shiny. I like shiny stuff. This is a compulsory activation device, staple for any deck. Solemn Warning, again, the cost is quite high at 2,000, but it's worth it to stop powerful monsters. Then I use 1 copy of Torrential Tribute. In total, it has 40 cards in this deck. And now let's move on to the extra deck, shall we? In the extra deck, we use 1 Contrast Hero Chaos, who is summoned by using 2 Masked Heroes. Usually I get to summon him in a match, especially matches that last quite a long time. And I just summon him using the Miracle Fusion, usually. I use 2 copies of Anki. Anki is the hero which allows you to add Chain Spell if it destroys a monster by battle. And also if your opponent is at 1400 life points, you can half his attack and attack him directly, which is also very useful. Acid. Acid is probably the best Masked Hero. It's basically a heavy storm and then lowers the attack of all your opponent's monsters. Also, it's good for eliminating back row cards. It's why I don't use much MST. Koga. Koga is a brilliant card. Basically, you can use Koga to lower the attack of an opponent's monster and then form change him to Anki and go for a good combo, or attack with Koga and then form change into Anki and then go into some other combo. He lowers the attacks of big monsters so they're no longer a threat. If you can get Dark Law out on the first turn, please do, because basically he shuts down decks. Basically, once he's on the field, everything on your opponent's side of the field is banished. So it doesn't go to the graveyard, it's banished, and lots of monsters lose their effect. So I use 2 of him in the extra deck. I use 1 Elemental Hero Great Tornado, which I usually bring out. My one is shiny, unlike the one that's been in the packs recently. Not packs, in the structure decks. I have 1 Elemental Hero The Shining, who is brilliant because I am always banishing monsters using Koga's effect, using Miracle Fusion's effect, so his attack becomes extremely high, and plus you can always go for a combo where you've got no cards in your hand, which is most of the time with this deck, and you add an Alias and a Bubble Man to the hand, summon the Alias, special the Bubble Man, and go into an XYZ summon. Absolute Zero, who I usually get to 3,500 attack points because of his secondary effect of gaining 500 for each water monster on the field. Usually I get special summon Bubble Man when he's on the field, and then I also get number 101 on the field, which gives him a good 1,000 boost. Also, if your opponents have got big monsters that can't be destroyed by battle, he's a Dark Hole, essentially, so you can send him off to the structure deck. Also, you can form change him into another monster, such as, what's his name? Acid. So you can destroy the back row and destroy all the monsters for a good combo. Next, the XYZs. Blade Armor Ninja, because he helps go for an OTK. Number 101 to get rid of those problematic monsters. Excalibur, again, because it's a very warrior heavy base deck, and it helps just to bring it down extremely fast. Geiger Cowboy, because he finishes battles pretty much. Basically, terms of defense, and then that's about it. Next up, we're going to go over the side deck. In the side deck, I don't use Light Imprisoning Mirror. Instead, I use these cards. I use a Pot of Duality in case I come up against a deck where I'm not drawing very much, because I do get occasional dry spells with this deck. I use 1 Parallel World Fusion in case I'm going against a deck that's banishing everything, in which case Parallel World Fusion is a card to have. 1 Neospatian Grand Mole, shiny, of course, because he's basically a compulsory activation device, and an extra emergency call in case I'm getting sick of reinforcements to the army, or just in case I want to add another spell. Another mass change just in case they have a Stardust Dragon, Nordic Relic Levity, I can't say that. If anyone can say that in the comments, please say so below. One Battle Fusion because it doubles my monster's attack. Sorry, no, it's basically Honest. It adds the attack of your opponent's monster to your monster, making your monster win the battle, basically. And I like how cool and shiny it looks. I use one mass change number 2 because it is brilliant and you can use it with any monster. It just needs an attribute. It would go in the main deck, except you have to discard a card, which I feel with this deck it's not easy to do. I mean, it's doable, but it's not easy to do. So I don't put it in the main deck. I always hide it. I use 2 copies of MST here because in case I want to get rid of the one that spells in the deck, or in case I want to get rid of the Dark Bribe because if it's not doing it for me. Also, it's more spells for Summoner Monk, so it's good for him. I've got an extra copy Dark Hole and an extra copy of Dark Bribe, just in case they have more monsters, so I just Dark Hole them. Dark Bribe because it works well with Dark Law, and in decks where they use a lot of spells and traps, like I fought against a deck, the Giant Hand deck, sorry, where there's a lot of artifact cards where they are spells and traps. Basically, it's just good against that. Magic Cylinder because I went against a Cyber Dragon deck, and basically it reversed the attack. I won the game in 1 because they limited removal a card with 5600 times 2 attack, which you don't need to do. Malevolent Catastrophe because it destroys all spells and traps in the field, and 1 Elemental Hero Escurundo for the side deck because I feel he is quite a good Elemental Hero. He gains 100 for each Elemental Hero in the graveyard, so when I'm not banishing and doing all that sort of thing, I like to summon him because he looks well cool. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the deck profile. I hope you tune in for more. Sorry I've not been around, I've been quite ill. That's it. I'm Drag Wolf signing off. Hope you enjoy the video.